Dear students of Honors Part 4, hopefully you are all right. I am Siddhartha Shankar, an assistant professor in English in Government Haraganga College, Munshiganj. Dear students, we are discussing D.S. Lawrence's Sons and Lovers, and in my previous class, I have discussed the one of the major narrative techniques of this novel, that is the stream of consciousness. In my previous class, I have already discussed on the effect of this technique of the what is happening in the mind of uh, Paul Morel, Gertrude Morel, and Miriam. Actually, you know that stream of consciousness is basically a narrative technique through which the narrator or the novelist uh, disseminates or discloses the inner thought of the characters. This is a modern technique, and through which we come to know about the psychology of the characters. So, dear students, today we are going to discuss about Clara and Paul's relationship, the relationship between Baxter Dwyer and Clara, and the thinking about this relationship, about the characters, or what was there in their mind, what was there in their mind about the relationship. So this is all about the stream of consciousness. Dear students, you know that in this novel we find that Paul was in relationship with two women, that is two ladies. One is girl who is a teenager named Miriam. The other one was a married woman, that is Clara Doyce. Actually, Clara Doyce, was the wife of Baxter Doyce, and she was physically very much attractive, and she was working in Jordan's company. And Paul also managed a job in Jordan's company, and the relationship between Clara and her husband was not a successful one, and they were living separately. And that's why here, at the beginning, we find that Clara was basically severely attracted by Paul, and she, as a married woman, wanted to have her physically. That means this love actually devoid of any type of mental or emotional attachment. We can think so. So when Clara was in the office, or when Clara used to work in the office, she always desired Paul, that Paul would come to her, and he would touch her, he would gossip with her, and they will make a good relationship. They wanted to mix, that Clara wanted that Paul should mix with her very closely. Mm. And she basically wanted to have her physically. And in this connection, that Clara, she basically knew that there is no that positive if impact there or future of this relationship, because she is a married one and Paul is a basically unmarried boy. And she knew that the ultimate that consequence of this relationship, that it will not be a it will not be end in marriage. That means there was no possibility of marrying each other. They knew that still they wanted to continue the relationship, because they wanted to have each other physically. And in the here, that the desire was more in the Clara. That means when a passionate woman, here we see the picture or depiction of a passionate woman. Clara was too much passionate, and when a passionate woman becomes attracted by a man, that is she or that woman wants wants to have him. This is the psychology here. And in the case of Clara, this is not a different one, and she basically wanted to have or wanted to maintain a physical relationship with Paul because she was detached from her husband. But about Paul, Paul was in relationship with Miriam, and Miriam was a Puritan type of girl. He honored her purity and virginity. Still, he wanted to have her physically, but Miriam didn't want to sacrifice her virginity. Later, he decided to do that because Miriam was in fear that whether she will be able to satisfy Paul or not. If she fails to satisfy Paul, Paul may go away from her. That means Miriam had a better kind of love or true love for Paul. On the other hand, the relationship between uh, Paul and Clara was basically mm, uh, love affair of the situation, that they were in the same office. Clara was physically attractive, and Paul was at that time very much depressed about his love affair with Miriam, and that's why she became ultimately attracted by Clara. So here you see that Paul had a confusion in his mind that he knew that Clara is a married woman and there is no future of this mm, relationship. She is always in a conflict with her, and this is a complicated affair. So Paul was conscious about this, was conscious, too much conscious, and that uh, his mother, Gertrude Morel, allowed this affair because she also knew, I think, that we can think so that these affair may not have a good finishing or good conclusion, and if this affair continues, there is no possibility of lose Paul. That means Gertrude Morel never wanted to lose Paul from her grasp. That means that the Oedipus theory here can be applied. The theory of Oedipus complex. Therefore, that ultimately we see that the relationship between Clara and Paul was not successful one because at one point Clara found that Paul was mean and weak, and in comparison to her husband, Paul is not as manly as Boxster was. Boxster was a manly fellow, and he had better exposure, or Boxster had better manly attitude, voice, and strength than Paul, and ultimately mm, Clara became attracted by her husband, and she settled her the relationship with her husband, and the relationship between Paul and Clara proved unsuccessful. So, what is the psychology here? Here, psychology, what is there in the mind? Both are conscious about the relationship. Paul was conscious about what may be the conclusion of this relationship, and Clara was also too much conscious about the relationship. That is, their inner thought. We can come to know about the inner thinking of about this relationship here. That means this is nothing but a physical attraction, and to satisfy their physical desire, carnal desire. And you know that Paul was in confusion whether he will maintain the relationship, because again Miriam wanted to reunite with Paul. Again, see that Clara wanted to have her physically, and at one occasion there was a duel between that Boxer Doyce and Paul. Paul was severely injured, and later Boxer Doyce became a good friend with Paul. And when they sit together, you see that Clara considered her husband Boxer Doyce as a better companion than Mr. Paul. Therefore, the relationship between Boxer Doyce and Clara reestablished, and Paul became that she he detached the he was detached from that relationship with Clara. So here today, dear students, we have discussed the relationship between Doyce, Clara Doyce, and Paul, and his feeling about the relationship with Miriam and Paul. Again, what is there in the mind of Clara about Paul and her husband, Mr. Doyce, that is Doyce. So, therefore, we can conclude today's discussion here, and in my next class, I will start with another topic. So, thank you for watching.